Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and today we'll be discussing the SEC East overall and the questions I have for each team. We're going to at least have two questions for each team that I would love for the fan base to answer of these schools, and overall just questions I think a lot of fans have going into this year for their respective teams. First of all, let's start off with Vanderbilt. Can you go bowling this year? Can you go to a bowl game? And the reason that this is even asked is because they were 5-6 last year before playing Tennessee. So they've had some close games before last year and that they didn't win, like against Missouri. I'm sure that was a 3-point loss. So if that goes the other way, you do make a bowl game, but even then Missouri doesn't. So it's kind of like Missouri really needed that game and Vanderbilt really needed that game, and Missouri ended up going up on top. But Vanderbilt in this game, this season, if I was a Vanderbilt fan, I would be kind of excited. You went 5-7 last year, and you extended your coach's contract, and now you're trying to see if you can go to a bowl game. And your start of the year is very easy too. You have a possibility of going 4-0 to start your year, and then you have games like Missouri and Florida throughout the year that you maybe could upset one of them. And I mean, even last year you beat Kentucky, so that was a good team that you beat. So you can beat pretty good teams, but the next question is relating to that. Can you keep up with solid teams? Can you compete very well against solid teams? That's been the problem with Vanderbilt for many years, is that they cannot compete against solid to good teams. Last year they showed glimpses of it. Can they consistently do that? We will see this year. But those are two questions I have for them. Next up, Missouri. Can you win some of your close games? You lost more close games last year than you won. And two of those close games that you won last year were against Vanderbilt, and the other one was against Arkansas. So you had some close wins last year, but also some close losses. One in particular was against Georgia. I think still haunts Missouri to this day. That they had a 2-possession lead, I'm pretty sure, heading into the fourth quarter, and they blew it. But it wasn't bad because it's Georgia, but it was something that they would have really liked to win. So can you win some of those close games? Can you get some upsets? You competed pretty well against Tennessee for the first half, but then you lost. You lost against Kentucky. So those are some good teams that you did lose to, but you also beat South Carolina last year. So you can beat good teams, but can you actually win some of your close games with facing good opponents? We will see. And other question is, are you ready for the next step? Because we've seen Missouri play very good before. We've seen Missouri make back-to-back SEC championship appearances. We've seen that before in SEC. They're not bad. They've just been on the downspout the past couple of years. But are they ready for the next step? Can they go to 7 wins? Can they go to 8 wins? Well, time will tell. But you have an easy schedule to the year to start off. Your main opponents against Kansas State, and if you beat them, you have a very easy schedule. Outside of that, your other toughest opponent is Vanderbilt, and then just a bunch of other teams that aren't good. So you have a possibility, if you beat Kansas State, to go 5-0 to start the year, and you'd be at home against LSU in that following week if you're up 5-0. So that might be a game day situation. Who knows? Who knows? Next up, Florida. How long will your fans be willing to wait? And the only reason I ask that is because last year you went 5-7 with Billy Napier, and he's still there. And this schedule is arguably the toughest out of all the SEC schools. And let me read through who you're facing real quick. At Utah to start the year. At home versus McNeese State. That's fine. Then at home versus Tennessee. That's always going to be a tough matchup. And you're at home versus Charlotte. At Kentucky. At home versus Vanderbilt. And then this is an extraordinarily tough schedule throughout after this. At South Carolina. The Florida-Georgia game. Then at home again versus Arkansas. At LSU. At Missouri, at home versus Florida. That is not an easy schedule to deal with. So if you're going to have that stuff still show up and your team's still not looking great and you're having this type of schedule that's going to be really tough for you to win, are you fans be willing to wait for this team to actually fully get together and work as a team that used to be a very good team of Florida? And are you willing to wait for Billy Napier? We'll see about that. And the next one is, can you win with the schedule? The schedule is extraordinarily tough. I have this team going 4-8 because of the schedule mainly, and also Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz does not impress me at all. To the slightest bit, Graham Mertz does not impress me at all. So he's probably the worst quarterback in the SEC until he's proven differently. And this defense, not looking special. No. So this run game doesn't look half bad, but you need a really good defense if you don't have a good quarterback. So yeah. Next up, Kentucky. How will Devin Leary change this team? That is a big question for them because he's coming off an injury, but he's coming off the year before then a phenomenal season with NC State. So how would he change his team? He got some very good receivers. My favorite one out of all of them is Barian Brown. He looked very good in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure he's a sophomore or a junior, so he might be back for another year after this. So you're looking at this team, and it's like, can Devin Leary work with this? Of course he can. But the next question that kind of relates to this, will you win the big games? And if you watch Devin Leary, he did beat Clemson at one point. He did win a big game, but Kentucky, they have set themselves up for big game wins. They've not fully got them. And by the way, I'm not counting you beating Louisville as a big win. It's a big rivalry win, but it's not a big win in the grand scheme of things. Like last year, you played Ole Miss, loss. You played Georgia, loss. You played Tennessee, got absolutely demolished. Those are three big games, and you lost them. And you have an easy schedule to your year. You have an easy start to your schedule each year. And the last time I think you had a really big win was against, I think 2 or 3 years ago against Florida. And Florida hasn't been great recently, but at the time they looked pretty good. But you know, Florida is. They can be looking good and then fall off. So, can you win big games this year? You have the chance to. You're at home versus Alabama, I'm pretty sure. You're at home versus Tennessee, and then you're at Georgia. You're going to have chances to win big games. Can you do it, though? Only time will tell. And also, one thing about Kentucky, your defense is great, but you did finish last in points per game last year with Will Levis. So you got to work on that. And this is the similar receiving core from then. They are going to get better over time, but they looked very good last year. So I wonder how much better they can get from that level. That good of a receiving core last year with an NFL level running back, with an NFL level quarterback, and you had the lowest points per game out of everyone in the SEC. It's kind of strange. And then we have South Carolina. What version of Spencer Rattler are we going to get? That was a big question from last year. I mean, right before he played Tennessee, he got blown out by Florida. And before then, he got destroyed by Georgia early on in the year. But then he made it to the top 25. And then he lost to Missouri. So it's like, what is this team exactly? And I think the way he ended last year, especially offensively, was very strong. Against Tennessee, against Clemson, against Notre Dame. You had some very big moments and very good games, which is a sign of a good team. Can you play well in good games and more important games? They did. So that's one question. What version of Spencer Rattler are we going to get? He's very consistently, and what consistency will this team have this year? I kind of referred to that before. This team is so inconsistent last year. Again, you made a top 25, lost to Missouri, then you just go out and got blown up by Florida, and then went out to beat Tennessee and Clemson, not Georgia, and Clemson, and competed very against Notre Dame. So this team is very inconsistent. So if they could play consistently how they did in the year, this is arguably a top 10 team in the country. It's probably a top 10 team in the country if they can play like that throughout the year. But if not, you have the ups and downs of a South Carolina year, then you're kind of looking at 20 to 25 range of the top 25 at probably what you're going to be looking at. I have them higher than that on my personal rankings, but I don't think they're going to be super inconsistent like they were last year. Next up, Tennessee. Can you match your offensive production that you had last year? And you might be like, well, these weapons are closer to the same. You refilled very well. You got Joe Milton at quarterback. Your running backs are the same. You put up 48 points per game last year. 48 points per game is insane. I put up in one average for a season. And with Hendon Hooker, who should have gone to New York when it comes to the Heisman stuff. He should have been up there for a Heisman candidacy. And Blake Corum should have been up there too. But that's a topic for another day. But let me discuss this. Can your offensive production be the same or be better possibly from last year? It could. It definitely can be. It has the potential to be. And from what I'm hearing from his camps and stuff, I heard Joe Milton's played very good. And he showed potential last year in this being a very good team. But with this team, I think they have to rely somewhat on their defense. And this comes to the next thing. Can this defense improve? And can they be consistent more than anything? I'd rather have a consistent defense than an iffy defense that's really good and then really bad. I'd rather just have consistently okay play. So I know what I'm going to get. So instead of performing extremely well against Kentucky and then getting blown out by South Carolina, max out we're going to allow 30, 35 points. But you can score more than that type of thing. I'd rather have that than just these inconsistent performances. Can you play consistently defensively? I've heard some very good things from this camp about Tennessee and their defense. So hopefully those come to fruition. And we'll see that out very soon in their year. And they have a very tough schedule, in my opinion. I mean, one of the teams that are non-Power 5 that they're playing is UTSA. And a lot of people are saying UTSA should be the top 25. So this team is no scrub. Granted, you do have them at Tennessee, which is a good thing. But the schedule doesn't make the schedule any easier. You still have a tough schedule. And then the cream of the crop, the best one of them all in all of college football, and especially in this division, Georgia. Two main questions for this team. And one of them is just based off of history and how things have gone. But this is the one before then. Can Carson Beck fill in well for Stetson Bennett? And if you watched Stetson Bennett last year, people were, including me as a Tennessee fan, were chastising him, like, oh, he's old and stuff. But when you really rewatch this film, he was genuinely just on the money with almost all of his throws. He was a great player. He was very good at executing his stuff. And he very rarely put your team in bad positions. And if he ever did, he got yourself out of it. So he is a very good player. And because of this, because of that level that he put the Georgia expectation to when it comes to quarterback, can Carson Beck match it? Because he might have to. He generally might have to. But you got a lot of great weapons around you that everyone knows. So I'm not going to get into that fully. But I think I think Carson Beck could, but we're going to have to see what happens. And then, this is probably the main question they have this year. It's just a historical question based on the history. Can you win 3 straight? And if you're wondering why I'm asking that, it's because there's teams that have won back-to-back, but didn't win the 3rd year. And that goes through all sports. It's very tough to win 3 in a row, especially in football. I don't know if I don't think any NFL team's ever done that, let alone college once in history, I think. And that was the 1930s Minnesota teams. I think we have like Bronco Nagurski and that stuff. So that's a while ago. That's been a minute. Can they do it the 3rd time? Teams have got close, but haven't done it. Can you be the difference? With this type of schedule, probably you have the best chance out of all of them. But you have some scares, like against Missouri. You got to watch out for those type of teams. And you also watch out for Ohio States of the world and Bama. You don't have them on your schedule, but no one wants to play Bama. You're going to have a close game. You don't want close games. It's Bama. Yeah, no one wants, unless if you're an underdog. If you're an underdog facing Bama, then yeah, you want a close game. And if you're not, you can possibly blow them out. That you definitely do not want a close game. But those are some questions I have for this year when it comes to these SEC East teams. I'll do the SEC West probably tomorrow. Yeah. Put in the comments if I haven't mentioned any of your teams. Put in the comments what you feel about this. If not, give your opinion about this. If you have any questions about me or about this or whatever, just put it down in the comments. And yeah, hit the like button if you like this video. We can put down the comments whatever you want. Hit the subscribe button. We talk about college football try to do almost every day. Talk about football and all that, all sports usually. And when our basketball season comes back around fully, I'll do more stuff. I'll do stuff about that. But yeah, college football is 1 week away, and I'm very excited. Very excited for that. Yeah, hope you all have a great day, y'all. Stay safe, y'all, and God bless y'all.